QFM training today. So in short, QFM is the fastest way to freeze palletized products more efficiently and effectively than previous methods. After this training, you'll be able to prepare your pallet to be placed in front of the QFM for storage, operate the QFM to its maximum efficiency, identify different issues with pallet stacks and seals, maintain the equipment, and we're going to cover what not to do with your QFM. So air is always going to go path of least resistance. We want to make sure that that path goes strictly from the aisle through the pallet and into the QFM, because that's what's going to give us the fastest freeze time. So there are various things that can block that pathway we're trying to create. We're going to talk about what they are and what to do about it. The first thing that you want to do is ensure that you have a nice straight stack on your pallet. Typically we like to have it flush to one edge, and that's the edge that you're going to want to put against the unit. You're also going to want to make sure that you've got a spacer between each layer of product. The key here is that we're going to be able to move air through each layer. So case integrity is also important. If you have a smashed case, it could hang over the edge of the pallet, or it could be blocking the airflow from the spacer. It's also going to destabilize the stack of the pallet itself, so we're going to want to make sure that the case quality is good. Removing stretch wrap is going to be essential. What the stretch wrap does is it blocks the airflow of the unit. A lot of times we'll see that come off and it can get sucked into the propeller of the fan. If you wanted an alternative to stabilize the stack, we recommend pallet bands. Each QFM is equipped with a swing seal. The design behind it is it can accommodate 20 inches of height variability. So if you had a 55-inch pallet, it's going to be able to freeze that, or a 75-inch pallet, it's going to be able to freeze that as well. If you have a pallet that's too short, it's not going to engage the swing seal. You're going to want to make sure and fill that gap. A couple different ways that we could do that. You can stack pallets on top of each other. Just got to make sure you shrink wrap those together. You can restack the pallet itself and stack the product kind of up and make sure that it's engaging the swing seal now. Or you can place a slip sheet or other cardboard dunnage to make sure you fill the gap. So a couple of different things with this pallet. One, it doesn't have any spacers, so no airflow through the layers of the cases. And then we call this center stacking. So all of the cases are centered on the pallet. And if you were to put this unit in front of the QFM, the pallet is what's going to stop against the QFM. And then all of the air that we want going through each layer is just going to go right around it. So air, path of least resistance, this pallet won't work well with the QFM. So with this pallet, we'll call this one a chimney stack. And there's going to be a kind of that square hole in the middle of the pallet. And all the cases are kind of flush to the corners, kind of creating that chimney-like stack. So you'll notice there's no spacers, and the airflow that we're trying to get from the aisle through the pallet into the QFM isn't possible here. It kind of all goes down the center of the chimney, and it's going to create an uneven freeze, and it's not what we want. All right, so this is actually a perfectly stacked pallet. You'll notice it's nice and straight. We have spacers between each layer. It's flush along that right edge there. So when you put the pallet against the QFM unit, that edge is nice and flush. And lastly, that pallet band on the top layer. If you have pallet bands, those are what we recommend. If you did a rope tie with shrink wrap around that top, that's also acceptable. This is an ideal pallet. This will get your peak performance from the QFM unit. This pallet looks like it's nice and straight. They've got some spacers between each layer. However, you'll notice the cases are hanging off one edge of the pallet. So if an operator went and pushed essentially that right side against the QFM unit, you're going to crush a bunch of your cases. You don't want to damage those. Your customer will be not so happy. And if you were to put the edge that doesn't have cases hanging over, so that left side against the unit, you're going to create what looks like a 2 to 3 inch air gap. And as we all know, air goes path of least resistance. It's just going to go right around those cases, and the performance of freezing this pallet's going to suffer. With this pallet here, You can see we've got a couple different things going on. But to begin with, it is a straight stack, so that's good. We've got spacers between the layers, and as we're going up, that's where we're kind of going off board a little bit here. It is a shorter pallet, so we do want to boost it up a little bit. The only problem is they put the booster pallet on top. It is kind of common to see that because it's easier for the operators to just put a pallet on top, but that's not what the QFM is looking for. You got to put the booster pallet at the bottom, and then it's going to operate correctly. Booster pallet on top is a no-no. All right, so this is actually a pretty good pallet here. It's a nice straight stack. There are spacers between each layer. You'll notice there's rope wrapping is what we like to call it, where if you're trying to stabilize this pallet and you don't have pallet bands, one thing that we've recommended is rope wrapping. So it's a good example of kind of the term we like to use, let it breathe. So that's where we're applying wrap, but we're still allowing that airflow to go from the aisle over the product through the spacers and into the QFM unit. So some common mistakes that we see: poor pallet stacking, leaning or uneven, not using spacers under every layer, not filling the empty space like a short or a partial pallet, putting booster pallets on top of the pallet stack rather than underneath the pallet stack, or chimney stacking. That works great for blast freezing, but not for QFMs. Or if we left Frosty alone in the warehouse. Now I'm going to show you guys how to place a pallet in front of the QFM unit. And the first thing to remember is when you're placing a pallet, we're looking for the perfect seal. A couple of things here. You want to make sure that your pallet is square, and when you're driving in, we want that pallet to actually engage the QFM unit. You want to push it all the way up against the unit. You're not going to hurt it. Boxes and product are actually going to be pressed against the black vertical seals, and it's going to engage the swing seal. It's actually going to push it back a little bit, and that's okay. That's what we want. It's going to make it so there's no other gaps for air to move. And what that does is creates that airflow pathway that goes from the aisle, and it's going to go through each one of these spacers. So we're getting that airflow that the fan is pulling from the back of the QFM, and it's coming in and it's going straight through these spacers. And that's what we want, because that cold air is what's going to freeze the product. To ensure that you have a good seal, we added an LED light as an indicator light to let you know whether or not your seal is good. It's at the bottom right. You'll see it when you're putting that pallet against the QFM. If it starts flashing red, that means it's running a seal test. If you don't have a proper seal, it's going to continue flashing red. That's when you know that you need to make some adjustments, push the pallet farther against the QFM unit, make sure it's square, and then you're going to get that good seal. When you get the good seal, it's going to turn into a solid green. So a couple of things that we've seen when someone's placing a pallet incorrectly: they don't push the pallet in far enough. One giveaway here is if you see on the second or third level, a pallet is hanging too far into the aisle, let's say past 1.5 inches, so you can say 3 inches, that's a dead giveaway that it wasn't fully seated against the QFM unit. Another thing we've seen is a pallet is crooked. So it might be placed fully against the left-hand side of the QFM, and then it's crooked, so then there's an air gap on the right-hand side. We want to make sure that the pallet is placed squarely and fully against the QFM unit. A couple of other things that we've seen in regard to the pallet being too short. Kind of one of the dead giveaways: if you put the pallet in front of the QFM and you see an air gap between the top of the product and the swing seal, you know that you're going to have to add a booster pallet. Another thing that we've seen is a pallet that's too tall. So if you have a 70-inch rack opening, don't put a 70-inch pallet right in front of there, because that top layer or top 2 layers isn't going to get the airflow. Good rule of thumb is to have 4 inches from the top of the swing seal go down, and that's your maximum pallet height. Also, you don't want to let Frosty stick his ice cream sandwiches in front of the QFM. For an auto seal system, you're going to want to push the pallet against the unit like normal, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be a little left, a little right. Doesn't matter if it's pushed all the way against the vertical seal, because the auto seal is going to take care of that. It's going to automatically activate and cling around the pallet, thus forcing air from the aisle through the pallet and into the QFM unit, creating the perfect seal every time. So now that your pallet's done, one way of telling that is that there's a blue LED light flashing at the bottom. That's the key indicator that you're ready to remove that pallet. The other indicator is the auto seal itself. Rather than being collapsed around the pallet, you're going to see it up and open, ready for a new pallet. So now you'll see this continuing flashing blue light indicating that it's blowing out. We're trying to get debris, shrink wrap. Sometimes we'll pull pallet labels in. And when that turns off, you know that the blowout's complete and you're ready to put a fresh pallet in there. So the main thing that we've seen when placing pallets with AutoSeal is if you're going too fast, you may damage it. You may rip the sleeve, or you may damage a fiberglass rod. Just make sure you take your time when placing pallets. And whatever you do, don't leave Frosty alone with the AutoSeal. So QFM maintenance. There's only a few moving parts with the QFM unit. One, you have your motor, the fan. Two, you either have an auto seal system or you have a QFM swing seal. With the swing seal, if you see it's damaged or it's no longer freely moving, that's a key indication that it's going to need replaced. With the auto seal, you could have a broken fiberglass rod. It could be hanging down, looking droopy. We'll need to get that one replaced. With the fan, you could have shrink wrap lodged in the motor or other pallet debris. Whatever it is, it could be a motor block. And keep in mind, if you see a solid red light, that's our indicator that there's something wrong with that location, and please don't use it. You're gonna wanna let maintenance know so they can take care of the issue. In regard to maintenance, one thing we've seen is somebody will see there's some buildup inside of a fan. Rather than waiting for that light to go red, let's get ahead of the curve and let maintenance know. That concludes our training. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your management team, or you can contact us at QuickFreeze.com.